So this is taken at the Jewish cemetery in what used to be the chapel.
Yeah.
And as you can see, there are bullet holes
Oh, wow.
in the steel doors, and the place was just a ruin. And most of the headstones had been toppled. And my Jewish friend said, you know, there's no hope of recovering any records of, you know, people who used to live there.
Yeah.
And you would have to spend a year there looking at the remaining headstones. Because my grandfather, my grandmother on the father's side, my father's parents, were probably buried there.
Oh, most likely, yeah.
Yeah.
Most likely, because if his father is her father from Chisinau, obviously the family was. Wow.
Now back to Moscow, so
Oh, yes.
there's the Lenin Mausoleum, and kind of classic
Very
picture,
classic picture,
red flag over the palace there. And the line waiting to see Lenin's
Lenin,
remains,
yeah.
okay?
And I think
Which I got to do once with a group of foreigners who got to partially jump the line. But it was interesting, you know, that the Soviet Union created various sort of substitutes for religion, if you will.
Absolutely, I totally
Because-
agree with this.
And so the mythology of World War II, the sacred character of Lenin, Stalin, of course, while he was alive.
Yeah.
When he was alive, he was in that same mausoleum. Well, I mean, shortly after his death, he was in that mausoleum.
Yep.
And then after Khrushchev's speech to the 20th Party Congress, they decided that they would move him to the Kremlin Wall. But Lenin's embalmed remains are still there.
I think he's
Yeah.
still there.
I think he's still there.
Which is
There's been talk of moving him to St. Petersburg, where his family was
for like
from,
for 20
Yeah,
years.
and
20
burying
years.
him, but I think he's still there.
He's still there.
But they've removed the honor guard. Now, I think that's coming up with it. Yes, so
But
this
that's
is-
service.
this used to be the most precise military maneuver of
Yep.
the Soviet Union. It was very high standard. It involved just a few people.
Yep.
But the changing of the guard, people would assemble for the changing of the guard, and it was quite, you know, it was quite interesting and exciting to watch because it was so carefully and perfectly done. And I think Volodya served in this unit.
He did.
Yeah,
My
he-
dad served in this unit because
I know that.
yeah, he was in the right, you know, they were very precise about the
Yeah,
height, about the
right.
shape, and he was, you know, handsome looking, and they were very, it was like, partially it was a show.
Yeah,
So
sure,
they-
sure.
so
Oh,
they-
absolutely.
they-
Yeah, so they were choosing.
He was hot. Let's face it, he was hot.
Yeah. So he did, and
Still is.
he could tell me exactly the steps and all of this, so he still remembers all those maneuvers.
Yeah,
right.
Yep.
Every hour, on the hour,
Yep.
24 hours a day, 365 days a year. You
Rain,
know,
snow,
it was very tough duty because you were not allowed to make the slightest error.
Yeah.
And when you were standing there for an hour, you had to be completely still.
Yeah, completely still. I don't think they even blink.
That would be tough doing.
Yeah. Yep. Here we
And
go.
so here's a night shot. Maybe in the winter, these guys are dressed in warm clothing.
Interesting. You have a
But
Russian
that's Russian flag,
It's a
yeah.
Russian flag. It's not Soviet Union.
Yeah, so this is
Good on.
already maybe 90s.
Yeah,
early
that's already
90s.
90s, I
Has
would
to be.
probably say.
Yeah,
Must have been.
but you get the idea.
Yeah, but did nothing change.
Just
It's
Photoshop
completely
that.
Now this is back to 1966 or 67.
true.
Kind of a summer crowd of
Fashion,
people.
yeah.
You can see the line in the background waiting to get into the mausoleum. And in the foreground, you know, people are eating ice cream. And one good aspect of Soviet culture we remember is that they had pretty good ice cream. you
They
know.
did.
Yeah.
They did really good.
And-
Yeah,
and so,
that's true.
There are a couple of young girls on the right. They're obviously eating Eskimo pies or
Yep.
something like
Oh
that.
my god, I wanted my Russian Eskimo. It was really good, that's true.
And there's a Russian soldier on leave. They were paid almost peanuts, you know.
Yeah.
So he's probably wondering what to do with his 10 rubles or whatever he was.
Oh my god, yeah. Lenin, Marx, Engels.
So here's the holy trinity of communism.
Yep, exactly.
Lenin, Marx, and Engels.
Yeah. Oh wow, that's an impressive shot. I actually very
And this was the November 7th
obviously.
parade after I'd arrived.
I
So
really
this would
wanna
be
get a
November
picture of this.
'66. And it was a military parade. Traditionally, it was kind of a military parade, but bringing up the rear would be hosts of factory workers and people from schools. In other words, the enthusiastic public would be would be given the day off to march behind the tanks and the artillery pieces, and as foreigners, we were we were not in Red Square. We were outside of Red Square, but pretty close, and we were able to get pretty close to the parade.
It's almost like a New Year in Bali when they not allow foreigners in it.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've always liked this shot because it was sort of a holiday
Yeah.
for the people in the crowd, They'd be laughing and joking like the girls in the foreground there and waving their red flags. And then at the end of the parade, they get the rest of the day off,
Yeah, it was official holiday. It was a state holiday. And now they switch it for some sort of Independence Day or something. Oh, that's a military parade.
At somewhere marked on these slides, I have the identification of each piece of hardware, but I don't remember what it is exactly. And in the background is the Гостиница Москва,
Yeah.
right? The Hotel Moskva.
And the historic museum as well, the piece of it.
That's right, the History
Yeah.
Museum is on the right.
Yeah.
And here's the cop on the beat looking at me kind of suspiciously.
Pretty good picture, like isn't that?
Good shot.
Why my phone stop working? Sorry.
Mm.
I have a picture. Yes.
We can take a break in a few minutes and make sure that things work.
Here we go.
There.
Thank you.
That's it.
Yeah. It's a pretty cool shot.
It's
It's really good. Near my, oh my god.
So this was on a May Day
What
parade.
is this? Николь
Near
Курсон?
my, what is it, Ленинским курсом
Ах,
коммунизма.
ленинский курсом коммунизму. My god, I cannot even read this. Ленинским курсом
We will follow the
коммунизму.
Leninist path
Yeah,
to
basically.
communism.
Yeah, so we take
And on
the
the left
Lenin's
side,
road
Mir.
to their
Peace, on the right side, my May.
May, peace, and red star. Yeah.
Got it.
So this is Goom Department Store on Red Square.
It was always been quite impressive building actually myself, but I don't remember so many. Yeah, and I
There's the
definitely
Bolshoi
remember-
Theater, it kind of in its holiday finery.
Too many red flags, too many, just too many. But this, yeah, this was a statement.
And Bolshoi again without its
At
finery.
night, yeah.
I think I like it better this way.
No, yeah, obviously. Ah, what is that?
Now this is a little group of young komsomols who are conducting military changing of the guard. They're just kids. But again, they're carrying out the tradition of the World War II commemoration, and I think this was in Novgorod.
Mm.
So-
Yeah, because I don't recognize
Yeah,
the
it's not
settings. Yeah.
one of the big cities.
Yeah.
But again, in regional centers, they would carry out the same traditions as in Moscow.
I used to wear a flag in there, but there's no guns or anything, but I wasn't in the honor guard or whatever for school, yeah, so I used to do that.
And here's
Дзержинский.
here's KGB headquarters, and that's Felix Dzerzhinsky's statue on the left,
Yeah,
which was torn down,
yeah.
placed in a park. But this was in Dzerzhinsky Square, it was called, and Детский Mir, the department store, is just off to the left. The Museum of the History and Reconstruction Moscow, very near to it, right there in a converted church. And I remember where I always noticed that as people walked around the square, that side was sort of avoided.
Emptier,
Yeah, you never
yeah, way emptier. Yeah, that's true. That's true. It was quite empty. Yeah.
And the original building was an insurance company before the revolution.
Oh.
Yeah. But of course the basement, this was also known as the Lubyanka.
Lubyanka, horrible
And
basement.
the basement is where torture and
Execution.
execution
And
would be
executions,
taking place.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yikes.
And here's Felix after he was removed,
Yep.
and he was set up in a park somewhere. Much larger than life, you can
Oh
see.
my gosh. Traditional, yeah.
This
but
was,
that's
I think,
not-
in the historical museum somewhere, but again, a very characteristic Lenin pose, you know.
Yes. And with marks and some on the background as well. Yeah.
Deep in thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's next? No,
This
very
is
good.
Lenin's
Train, you
funeral train. When he died, I forget from where to where it went, but anyway, there was a special museum with a train that would carry his body.
It's horrible when they did these just.
Then another aspect of Soviet culture was, of course, the board extolling shock workers, or, you know, particularly worthy individuals. And this was in one of the regions of Moscow, Kirovsky Rayon. And so the leading lights of that particular district would have their pictures posted. And you'll notice that the public is just fascinated by them.
It's like a Starbucks, the employee of a week or something like this, basically. I love
Here's
it.
a bunch of nice little bunch of young pioneers
Yeah.
going on an excursion.
I used to do that. Oh, cute. Yeah, they're very nice. This is pretty. That setup is familiar to me.
Yeah.
Probably still a little earlier than my time, but it kind of, yeah, very similar.
Maureen, are you coming back?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Keep going.
We can take a break for 2 minutes. Anybody wants a drink or something? We
Okay, well, just tell me when. Now?
can. Yeah, Maureen's gone. We'll just do it real fast.
Okay.
Take your time, Maureen. Clear your throat. I just got something.
I'll just turn the projector down to cooling.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see what picture I got. It's quite impressive pictures.